welcome. This is the Women in Architecture networking session. This is where we are interviewing 6 of our panelists for the 2023 Minnesota AIA conference. And I am here with Kaitlin Schalow and Andrea Wollak.
Hi everyone, this is Kaitlin Schalow. I am an architect at HGA.
And hi, I'm Katie Kangas, architect at Pask Architecture. And Andrea Hammel Wollak was there when I got started, and she was one of the people who was so inspirational and helpful for me when I was trying to forge my own path and start my own firm. So welcome, Andrea, as we get to know more about what drives you forward in the profession.
Thank you for having me. Andrea Hammel Wollak. I am a managing partner at HW² Design and Architecture. I'd sort of consider that my legal title as an LLC. We're a woman-owned, so 51% owner of the company. An architect that dabbles in landscape, interiors, food service, so kitchen design. I also take care of proposal writing. They tease me that I'm the face of the firm. My partner, I'd rather be back at the computer producing. I'm a wife, a mom, a gardener. I love to cook or bake, day labor on construction sites. So I wear many, many hats.
I love it. And so where have you been finding inspiration lately?
It's more things that sort of, we'll say, fall across my lap of a magazine that comes in the mail, social media. I would say all of the beautiful fall colors and my dahlias that have been very slow and are finally blooming. Just sort of color and texture has always been, I sort of something that centers me and brings peace to me. So it's been enjoying those flowers and all the trees outside my windows.
Great. So tell us a little about your life journey to where you are now.
Yeah, my life journey. My father decided, who is an engineer, that I would be an engineer, and that's how he started planning. I got into middle school and fell in love with hand drafting. I had an awesome IT teacher. We did, everything shop class related plus drafting. So in middle school, 6th, 7th grade, I decided I was going to be an architect someday. And my plan was to be a residential architect part-time and be a stay-at-home mom, because my mom was a stay-at-home mom. Things have changed. I went to Iowa State School, met my husband there and studied abroad. We went out to New York City right straight out of graduation. So graduated, got married, 10 days later, moved to New York City, lived in Manhattan for 2 years and Brooklyn for 1 year. I consider that my master's in life and space planning. Being homegrown Minnesotan, we sometimes are more passive about things or quietly sit back. I learned how to become more assertive and stand up for myself. I was put into a role that was probably 5 years senior to me. The guy was let go because he wasn't performing, and my boss said, good luck, and threw me in. The project was 2 weeks behind schedule, and I was to bring it up to schedule. Great boss, learned a lot, very tough boss though, as well. Decided it was time to come back to Minnesota. Had decided my boss was sort of in limbo in New York City of a smaller firm, and then we merged with a larger firm, and I'm like, I'm not a large firm person. So much to my great aunt's pushback, I did not interview at HGA to go back to the family business.
I want to backtrack a little bit and just
I've been very quiet about it. Like if it comes up, I would say this is probably the most vocal I've been about it, to say that it was my great uncle that was Richard Hammel of HGA.
That's what I was wondering, because you have a very entrepreneurial spirit embedded within the family, but I was wondering, what was it like growing up watching that happen?
I didn't see him a ton. I remember Christmas, he designed my grandparents' home. That was the last home they lived in. Mid-century modern Eames furniture, terrazzo basement floor. It was beautiful. It was amazing. So I remember him at Christmas coming with rolls of drawings, and he didn't come every Christmas with rolls of drawings and big Sharpies and markers and crayons and stuff. And we just go down on the basement floor. He passed away in 1988. So I was 8 years old. And I guess I told my mom at that time that it was very sad that he was a great man, and I didn't know him well enough that he couldn't die yet. I would say there's not strong memories of him, but I would say that architecture has just been subconsciously in our family all of our life. So I decided that it was time to start my own firm. So things had just sort of landed in place, and some senior architects said, if you're going to do it now. At that time, we were living in South Minneapolis, had one kiddo. And so I said I was going to start my own company. Ended up, my husband was not happy at where he was at, was interviewing some other places, which knew he was not going to be happy in another year or two, even switching jobs, the glamour period of a new job. So I convinced him to join me as well, which we'd always said we'd be at different jobs. So we started HW Squared Design, which my fourth grader just figured out the math joke that it's Hammel Wollak Wollak. He's learning about square roots, so
I love that. Yeah, it finally clicked.
So I guess we, starting out your own firm, Katie, as you know, you say yes to everything. So we have learned a lot. We do just about everything. Have not dabbled back into healthcare because that's so specialized. And government work, there's more red tape than I'm very good at playing with. So we do little tiny bathroom renovations of 30 square feet up to huge church remodels, additions, sports complexes, and everything in between, bowling alleys, laundromats, mom and pop restaurants, you name it, we probably have done one. But I like that variety. When I was still at Walsh Bishop, things were slow. That was the beginning of the recession. So 2019, 2010, I was bored. So I started a food truck on the side. So we've learned not to let me get bored. So having a lot of diversity in my life is a good thing. We were just talking about like resumes and stuff with the kids. And I realized that in high school, I powered through 2 years of soccer in high school. So I had a well-rounded resume, and I definitely have sort of stayed that subconsciously throughout my entire life. Like, I love architecture, I love design, but as I said, landscape, interior, gardening, volunteering with the kids, either at church or 4-H, I like a lot of variety, and I see design in many ways. If it's packing a lunch for the kid, I'm, arranging their vegetables in their little bento boxes, or gardening, or what it is. So, I sort of live, breathe, sleep architecture, but it's more design and sort of the passion for that. So that's just sort of where I'm at. I stay very diversified in our profession, and as well as I do sort of outside of, we'll say, my career, if there is actually a line there.
You mentioned checking the boxes. I'm curious what you mean, like when you're trying to decide whether to say yes or no to something, if it's going to fit in your schedule. And I notice when you say you're going to do something, you do it 100% during that time that you're doing it. And so it's got to make it through a filter process. So what are some of those boxes you're trying to check when you're saying yes to things?
Usually comes down to a good team, good people, a need. I don't need a big glamorous job. I'm happy helping somebody with their first coffee shop or whatever it is. If they're a good person, that passion of seeing somebody succeed, that checks the box. I'm getting better at saying no instead of, mentally making up excuses that, oh, it'll be okay. The same is, volunteering for 4-H, either at club level or county level. It's like, we're in the food stand from my food truck world and catering past, it's like, they're a good bunch of people. It's good for a good cause. It's helping support the kids. I'm not overly a kid person, so I'm sort of better, we'll say, behind the scenes, like helping manage a food stand versus teaching arts and crafts. But I do actually ended up taking on the county level craft day as well. I just find teachers, so I can just organize and have people teach. So I would say it's just, at this point in my life, it's just sort of almost become sort of almost one checkbox to be like, are they good people? Like, none of that sort of subconscious of like, something's a little off here. We're going to quietly back out of this situation. But also, it's like, I wouldn't be happy just doing, we'll say, for storage facilities all the time, because there isn't really any design work into that. So, having variety, and also learning something new of like, oh, hey, no, I haven't done a laundromat. Yes, let's figure out how to do one, and do a second one. Sure.
I love it. So what gets you excited about your team, your projects, or your what do we call those? What do we call the 4-H and the pluses, the family, the everything else?
I don't know, volunteering, family.
Yeah.
What gets me excited? I think the new challenge, I'm one that likes smaller projects. So the new challenge of the new project, is it figuring out how to meet the shoe need of a very small house that has only 300 square feet we can add on without having to go through a ton of red tape? Is it rebranding Bubbly Tea Cafe, but knowing, yes, they've got grand dreams right now, but in 3 months, they're going to come back and tell me it's too much money. So let's just start out being thoughtful about the budget. Sort of that creative problem solving of, in some ways, maybe what can we work with to create a wow while we're on a budget, or what can we work with and be thoughtful about where do we put the money? Is it some really cool tile that we put in, and everything else we make sure that is more, it's paint, something like that, that's a cheaper material.
Now it sounds like you've done leadership for quite a while, especially when you were thrown into it in that New York firm. How do you define leadership?
I am one that leads more by action than anything else. I sort of, showing hard work, showing how to be thoughtful and listen to your team members. Also respecting people and also expecting to be respected back. Some people struggle with, being female, of being of different color, and have run into things, and I never have. And I don't know if it's just my mentality of just not tolerating it and respecting everybody. So I guess that's probably the main way. And as you know, Katie, there are females that have come up to me and said, hey, do I find a new firm? Do I do my own thing? And I'm always 100% do your own thing, because I think it's fun. You do have to have, we'll say, the stomach for it, kind of, because it's not always easy. There's days you're like, what did I get myself into?
Right. And
So,
finding that boundary when things start to like leak into your subconscious and start to like fester outside of work hours. And it's like, no, I gotta stomach this.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's times that you're up at 3 a.m. to problem solve something, because that's when it's there, and you might as well get it done instead of dwell on it.
So this is kind of building on your definition of leadership, Andrea. Why is having that power and influence so important as a leader?
I think I struggle with the word power, but maybe it's because things have been abused with people that feel like they have too much power. So I'm very much more of a supporter of, here, hold my hand. How can we get through this? What is your challenges for today? What is your challenges for the month, the year? What is good? What is bad? Sort of that plus and minus list to think about. So I would say that, I try to be accessible and humble and say, hey, let's do this together.
That term power is tricky. And so that's kind of why we're like, power or influence. How do we talk about this this thing that happens when you're put into that leadership role? And so where have you found role models for that type of leadership or that type of action for supporting others?
I've never been very good at, we'll say, calling out people that I consider my role models. I quietly observe. I've been told, I've done this most of my life, that I will quietly listen and observe and then continue on however I seem pleased. So I'd say I've never called out anybody to be my mentor or my role model, but I always try to look at those that have gone down the path ahead of time and try to learn from what they've done. And also, like everything, what worked, what didn't work, kind of thing.
So how did you find this path that you've forged, where you're merging life and practice and volunteering all into one?
It was not pre-planned by any means. It just sort of, this is the challenge today. Here we go. Sort of having that early on goal that I wanted to have my own firm. I come from a family of entrepreneurs, which might say something about my personality of, watching and learning and then doing what I want. You have kids and you can project how life is going to go with having a kid. I found out I passed my last architecture exam, was pregnant with our daughter, and had my grand opening taste testing party for my food truck within 2 weeks of each other. So that was sort of, jump in with both feet, here we go, kind of thing. And, how do you be creative? We're working, is it a food truck? Is it in the office? And you're trying to nurse your child. So, you're pumping, and figuring, just how to do that. We were very fortunate that our daughter, our first one, was very flexible. We continued to travel. She just sort of came along as need be kind of thing. We tried to do childcare, but you never know when your kid's sick and you've got to get in a meeting and here you go kind of thing. Or a Saturday, you've got to work and the kid needs to come with you because your spouse needs to do something else. I would say things just sort of aligned when I decided it was time to start our own firm. I had some project work to bring along. We were consulting back with other firms that just needed somebody for 3 months or 6 months kind of thing, but they didn't want to bring on anybody full time. So that worked out perfect to have that as a part-time job, then still be fostering our new profession. I would say really that first 3 years, we did a lot of consulting back with other firms. We'll say paid the bills while we got our feet under us, and also learned how a lot of other little firms worked at that time. We found out when we had our own health insurance, which is, sort of those adult things that you've got to be like, oh, here we go. Pregnancy at that time was an 18-month pre-existing condition. And it's like, well, do we really want to have 5 years between our kids or not? And we didn't. So I figured out how to nurse and draft at the same time because there was no maternity leave kind of thing. And we we're just starting out. So there wasn't a lot of extra money. And I just come from a firm that had given us a year of pay cuts. I guess every day is a possible new challenge. And I just sort of pivot and stay flexible. There's no need to get upset about the schedule changing because it's out of your control.
And now to go a little deeper, what does that mean to you personally? Where are you finding that purpose in your life? What is driving you forward? What satisfaction are you gaining? And how is that moving you forward?
I would say purpose, sort of touching back on to supporting those new business owners. Example is my bubbly tea cafe that was Cha Time. I've been their architect for 8 years. To see them grow and now they are their own company. They're not a franchise anymore. That is just amazing and fun to be part of that. Also, on the residential side, having the opportunity to help somebody with making their home more efficient, more accessible, whatever their goals are, that's always very satisfying to get that done. I would say the biggest thing is just having a good group of people that you work with. I would say 75% of our work come from general contractors that we have teamed with. They want to work with us again. We want to work with them. So we've got a lot of collaboration and we feel very fortunate to do it. It's not always glamorous work, but it's working with good people. And that's really, I think at the end of the day, being surrounded by good people who are healthy and positive, really, you can do a lot of things having a good team with you.
I love hearing about the transformation that you get to do in all of these projects. That seems like you see your impact in this process, but it's not just what you're doing, it's what everyone's doing together. And that's made a lot easier with the sort of culture that you're describing, where it's healthy and supportive and all sharing a similar goal towards the end.
Andrea, it sounds a lot like you're finding your purpose in affecting other lives and that transformation. When did you come to that realization that that's what meant a lot to you through the work? Did that, like when you first started off in that New York firm in the first few years, did you find meaning in different ways? Like, has your meaning changed over time?
Probably meaning in different ways. I would say first couple of years it's sort of surviving and making sure you feel adequate at your role. I mean, sometimes you get put into roles that you maybe are not as experienced in. At the end of the day, is your client is happy, the space works for them. I listen as much as I can and truly listen and hear what they're saying about, hey, my space does not work. This is why it does not work. Like my residential clients have an 8-page document they have to fill out before I will meet with them. Listening so you can fix the problem has always meant a lot. I would say in some ways I forget to take a step back and reflect, having these questions come across my email again. It's like, oh, what does bring meaning? What does, where has your life gone kind of thing? And, I have to be careful not to get burnt out. This summer was just insane with our own construction project and our kids' activities. And I was just tired. And it's like, okay, I need to slow down. I need to set some boundaries that I'm not going to work, 8 hours on Saturday before noon kind of thing. And then go be a mom or go be a construction worker or a gardener after I get done working those 8 hours on Saturday. Because those are early morning hours that get done, before people are up or really functioning kind of thing. So I'm one that just sort of keeps moving ahead and sometimes does not stop to reflect and look back. I sort of just look at the next challenge and keep going.
That's why we so appreciate that you take this time with us so that we get to hear a little more, because it's fun to hear how the machine is running and how you're doing the work, you're doing it and making it happen. And just to take that pause so that others can learn from it as well. And it can be helpful to think about those deeper questions every so often.
Mm-hmm.
I think what's impressive to me about your process is that you're analyzing that problem and you're observing, you've described that, but that entrepreneur mindset is like, you're looking for the gaps and you're seeing where your own skill set can be applied to infill those gaps. And so that can kind of make it hard to follow any one path because you're looking for what doesn't exist yet to then be that value and complete that project for those people. I've felt that coming from a small town. It's like, well, a small town only needs this job, it only needs one grocer, it only needs one florist, it only needs, so what's missing? Oh, like, and to fill in and create that complete picture, because you are kind of designing both the team and how to get to that end result.
You summarized that up very nicely.
I know, but I haven't like read anything about that aspect of like team management or leadership. So it's the missing link. It needs to be made more like, people who do it just kind of do it naturally, quietly. And I think it could be taught.
And see the work too. If people commented, my daughter helped at church with serving, and like she saw that a plate needed to be cleared or this needed to be done, and I've learned that not everybody sees the work that needs to be done. They need to be told what's there. And she's come a long ways with her part-time job at the stable too. It's like, yeah, there's a chore list, but she's also getting a lot better of like, oh, hey, I've got some downtime, I should work on this because we have a moment, kind of thing. But yeah, I guess it is sort of like seeing the work that needs to be done, or seeing the hole to patch up whatever's not working.
Yeah. So speaking of holes, there's the hole in the profession where a lot of women drop out of.
Good segue.
There are women who do drop out of the profession, and people who leave architecture to do close things or far things away from it. What do you think we need to do to retain talent, or how do we help these women who are practicing achieve what they're meant to do?
Yeah, there's so many different layers. I know when I was thinking through this, I jotted down some notes. I would say compassion, understanding, and flexibility are probably key. I don't know if I probably would, but being in a more traditional firm, how that would look, that would be, I think, a lot more stressful for me, knowing that, I needed to be in the office from 9 until 5, but, I've got a kid that needs to be picked up at 2:30 to go to work twice a week. I'm fortunate to have parents that are nearby that can help out. COVID, I think, helped a lot of employers realize that people can be more flexible and responsible with their time and still get their project done. I think anybody with kids, male or female, also need to understand that, you've got a sick kid, you've got a kid that needs help with homework when they get home from school and they get home before work day is done, and that, you'll get to pick up the time elsewhere. I've become a big proponent of like, if you can't sleep at 3 a.m., then just get up and do it, kind of thing, instead of dwell, because then I would wake up so exhausted. I started this when my daughter was born, my first one. I'd get up at 4 to nurse her and then try to fall back to sleep. Well, I didn't really fall back to sleep, so I felt more tired when I finally got up at 6:30 or whatever it was. So I just got up at 4, fed her, and then went into the office. I had an office that let me, and I had a firm that has flexible, and they knew that I had to be out that door at 4 o'clock to pick up my daughter by 4:30, kind of thing. But they knew that I was there early working. And I still have that, there's days, and yeah, sometimes I do need a nap after lunch if I get up that early, and then other days I'm totally fine and make it through the whole day. Another big thing I would say is people having partners that are supportive as well, and that their profession or employer is also supporting, to know that, hey, the mom who, as my doctor told me, inherently becomes the CEO when kids come into the household. Like, Doesn't matter if dad's standing there in the kitchen, they're going to walk past dad to find mom to ask the question. But I think having a spouse, a partner that is understanding that, yes, we're in a demanding profession and that we're going to need help, that, we need to split the cleaning chores, we need to split the food, grocery, whatever the chores are. We're also really big on like, who does that task better? Then that's what they're going to do because they're more efficient at getting it done. The joke is IT. It's like, here, fix my phone. I don't know what I did again, kind of thing. It's like, I'm not going to fuss around with it when I know you can just look at it and it's fixed. And we do that, with projects too. It's like, oh, this is a core and shell heavy building. You're going to be a lot faster at detailing this than I am. And yeah, I should learn that better. But in the same sense, we're efficient, we're lean. Let's have the best person step forward to get the job done. You need to be passionate about this career because it is a demanding profession, between sort of, I would say, what we put on ourselves to having an efficient design, a clean set of drawings. Then we've got the general contractors that we've got to answer to. Then we've got the clients, plus the rest of our team. So there's a lot of balancing, and we oversee a lot. And giving yourself grace and compassion, but in your home life too, it's like, okay, my house is going to be a little clutterier or have more dust because that's just not worth it right now, So I would say there's many, many reasons why females maybe leave. Ways to support them would just be compassion and understanding and flexibility, and letting them know it's okay. They don't need to be perfect at everything.
I love that. Flexibility, compassion, understanding goes so far to mend so many of those holes that we see in relationships and teams. When you lead with that heartfelt outreach where you're listening to one another, that can go such a long way. Good lessons for any size of firm and any relationship, whether it's professional, contractor, or otherwise. Yeah. That's very wise. Andrea, what you do is so amazing on all fronts, and you really are working on all fronts and doing it. And so it's awesome to bring your voice to this leadership talk at the Women in Architecture networking session, because it's about finding unsung heroes like yourself who are leading and we don't hear enough about. So thank you so much for sharing your story and hearing just all about what you're doing. And making the world a better place in your realm and in such a big way. It's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it was. I agreed. I'm one that's more behind the scenes. So when you ask me, I'm like, me? Why me? I'm like, I'm just gonna keep my head down.
Thank you for joining us. This interview was prepared for the Women's Search for Meaning in and Beyond Architecture session. The networking portion of this session will take place on November 13th at the AIA Minnesota 2023 Conference on Architecture. The AIA Women in Architecture Committee prepared this mini-series to share the stories of 6 women and their unique paths into leadership. Our hope is to inspire your own search for meaning in and beyond architectural practice.